Another fine time to be together on our weekend breakfast show, Weekend Deal. Yesterday, we began our conversation about the cashless policy in Nigeria. We brought to the fore activities of the point-of-sale machines and automated teller machines. We talked about the gradual movement from the ATMs to the POS and circumstances and experiences of the users as well as the agent bankers who handle these machines. The cashless policy took off on April 1st, 2020. With a major task to curb excesses in financial transactions. And thus we have many of us utilizing the ATMs and the POS. How far have we gone? What remains to be done? How are we functioning? Let's see this as we take off with our backgrounder. The use of point-of-sale machines, popularly called POS in Nigeria, is growing. Although a majority of this growth is concentrated in the urban areas, there are still quite a number in the rural areas. Research also shows that POS outlets can become almost instantly lucrative, especially when they provide the following financial services, like cash deposits and withdrawals, funds transfers, utility bill payment, airtime recharge, and other related services. Apart from shops specifically set up to provide these services, other goods and services providers also play the role of banking agents. In a related development, while the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System data of March 2021 shows that there are about 307,000 POS machines in Nigeria, it further enlightens that of that number, only about 167,000 were active at that time. A random survey of several POS points also shows that cash withdrawals make up about 90% of their daily transactions. So while agent banking promotes financial inclusion, it might not usher the nation into a completely cashless economy as some had theorized. As we increasingly strive to become a cashless society, many wonder if the automated teller machine may become extinct, as some ATM users consistently lament over failing services while embracing the booming business of agent banking and the POS. Have POS outlets really improved our living quality? Are they overwhelming and surpassing the services being provided by the hitherto more established automated teller machines? Does POS usage reduce fraudulent activity in financial transactions? All this and more have a direct impact on Nigeria's ease of doing business and our cashless economy. Join in the conversation on Weekend Deal today. Very interesting, I must say. How do these services provided by the agent bankers as well as the ATMs, how do they ease business transactions? How is it impacting our cashless policy? We continue to bring to you what our research has thrust up and what our producers and reporters nationwide are bringing to the fore. POS experience in Sokoto local market is next.
It is another business day for Abdullahi in Dankure local market, somewhere north of Sokoto town. He is an average retailer dealing in fruits and fruitlets, quite satisfied with the progress he is making in the business on daily basis. Abdullah is doing business in the market with relative ease, where he readily accesses cash at the point of sale just next to his business camp to buy goods or make deposits later in the day.
POS services save us from having to wait for physical cash payments. One only needs to transfer money from one's location. Truly, we are happy about this development.
POS agents are on the increase in the local market, making financial transactions not just faster, but possible to much more people than are physically present in the market hustles and bustles.
Right now I have goods on the way and my POS agent has made payments on my behalf. This was not the case when you had to make some money, then send for goods. That exposes us to a lot of risks.
It is very encouraging and satisfying. And in our locality here, in our location here, at times you might be needing extra money for your purchases in the market when you run short of cash and there is no available banks close by. So the POS is the easiest means of transaction in which you might get your money easily without going to the bank, without any stress.
Alhaji Hassan is managing a customary savings scheme for businessmen from all sections of the market. In 2 decades doing this business, he already has a robust customer base. Until recently, Hassan was, however, skeptical to do transactions by means of point-of-sale machines for his business.
As time goes on, my customers started demanding for transfers by the POS. Even yesterday, one of my customers in Katsina demanded for payment by the POS, which I successfully did.
Point-of-sale agents in the market make use of the machine in ways unusual to the service of customers with special demands.
Some of our customers do not even have cell phones, and they need to communicate with customers elsewhere to complete transactions. So, all they need to do is to come to us, bring a phone number, and we use the POS machine to link them up.
POS agents in such as this market and elsewhere are becoming more established by the day, with steadily growing customer base and trust.
Gratitude to Allah. I have been patronizing POS services for some time now and never encountered a problem, and none of my colleagues too encountered any. We send money for supplies, and any amount of money is also sent to us for sales. I even have customers whom I have not met, yet they send money to me and I send to them too through our POS agents.
The place of point-of-sale agents in our local market is perhaps unrivaled by any other modern means of financial transaction. Small as it appears though, it is a big factor in growing Nigeria's ambitious microeconomy, at least for the time being.
Thanks, NTA Sokoto. It's quite interesting to be in Abuja and to visit Sokoto just with a glance. We've come to learn of the activities there, and it's gladdening to know that fraud is very minimal or practically non-existent over there. We want to ask you to send in your experiences, what you face. Are you a POS agent? Do you want to share your experience with us? Many of us have patronized POS terminals. Let us know how it's been going on with you. Is it aiding your business? Also, in Lagos, in a bit, we'll be chatting with Damola Bolodioku. He's the head of e-business at Wema Bank. We'll be asking him a lot of questions about the POS and the ease of doing business, as well as the cashless policy. But that will be after we take fraudulent activities that are ongoing at some POS outlets.
POS, or point of sales machines, came into existence to further encourage cashless transactions and by extension minimize the endless queues at ATMs and banks, but unknowingly created avenues for criminal activities. There have been reported cases of armed robbers breaking into homes and offices, and victims are forced at gunpoint to relinquish their ATM cards along with their PIN numbers, which are confirmed with a POS device carried by these robbers, who then proceed to make withdrawals till the incident is reported and stopped. Another method of thievery using POS is when a fraudster goes to a POS operator in the guise of withdrawing money. After he is done withdrawing, he goes online and reports to his bank that this transaction failed and his account was still debited. He does this by using a firewall application which validates the transaction, and the fraudster's money is returned to him, meaning that the POS operator has lost money. These e-crimes aren't easily traceable due to how the operation is configured. There are two types of POS machines, namely the traditional POS and the Android POS. The Android version is the kind used by these armed robbers because it gives no details of the transactions carried out on it. And this is because the SIM card that is attached to the POS account through which the POS agents receive transaction alerts is different from the SIM card used to operate the machine, meaning that a POS machine fraud is traceable only if the SIM in the machine is the same as the SIM in which the agents receive their transaction alerts, as is the case with the traditional POS machines, which records and prints out all transactions, whether successful or not. Some incidences of e-crimes using the POS, however, is just as a result of sheer carelessness on the part of the card holder. Patrons of POS operators are warned to be more cautious.
Let me speak from the side of the consumer. If you are using a POS machine and you are not very careful, your account can be hacked. People can take your money, especially people who go to POS. One of the common things we see is some people go to a POS operator and they give them their card and they don't hide their PIN in the presence of the POS operator. Every ATM card has a long number in front of it called the PAN number. Now, if your operator knows your PAN number and has your PIN number, he can take money from your account any day, anytime. So that is why you have to be very careful, especially for those who patronize private POS operators. When you go to them, don't let them see your PIN. You can see your card, but they should not see your PIN, because if you allow them to see your PIN, they can take money from your account.
Every piece of technology comes with its own unique weakness. And since there will always be dubious individuals desperately trying to outsmart the system, the general public should always be at alert to beat these fraudsters to the punch.
Thank you, Ayuba Tete. Very enlightening, I must say. As customers, as clients, we need to be proactive. Think ahead of that POS agent. In these debilitating times, it is not easy to give out money involuntarily to anyone. So safeguard your PAN and your PIN number and be your biggest security agent. We're still talking about the point of sale terminals and outlets, the ATMs, and then our cashless policy, how it's impacting ease of doing business. It's time to go to Lagos, where we'll be having a chat with the head of e-business, Damola Bolodioko. He'll be telling us a lot about some things we seek clarity about. It's great to have you on Weekend Deal. It's great to have you on Weekend Deal.
Nice to hear. Nice to be here. Nice to be here. Nice to be here.
I'm sure you followed the trend of our conversation, the POS, the ATM usage, how we're gravitating to the POS, and there's a proliferation of them everywhere. We're gaining more clarity to its usage and how we can safeguard our financial transactions. But we know that you can tell us more, especially as there's much talk about e-banking. People are talking about the e-wallet. Professor Theresa Audenwa mentioned that yesterday, and I know that many others, just like me, may need a deeper understanding, especially if it can aid our banking transactions. When we say e-banking, e-wallet, e-naira, e-business, tell us more.
Question. Absolutely. The e-wallet, e-banking is basically about digitizing cash. So we're coming from a place of where there's quite a lot of cash usage, and with the government's cashless policy, we have seen a trend of a number of people moving into digitizing cash. So electronic banking, e-wallets are channels where we can use to digitize our cash. So today, where you see a number of the POS agents performing transaction, what they're actually doing is actually ensuring that those things that we used to do then, the cash transactions, are digitized electronically. So with the government's new e-wallets, e-naira wallets, NQR code, and all digitalized payments, they're all coming into the market and helping us with the cashless policy. So I think that gives it.
Danny Wukari from Taraba State is telling us that he said the POS is the greatest thing that the Central Bank of Nigeria has helped Nigeria with. It stops frustration at the automated teller machines. Of course, that's contributing to the ease of doing business. But we did hear about some fraudulent activities at point-of-sale terminals. And there's much talk about the customer being proactive. And to be proactive, we have to know the dangers that are inherent in POS transactions. Tell us more, Mr. Damola.
Absolutely. The customer has 100% responsibility in this case, because you have to guard your personal identification number. That's your PIN number, your 4-digit PIN, and that's why it's called personal. You don't need to share that information to a third party. Even if you can, you don't need to make available your card details to a third party. So when you're patronizing these agents, it's much different from you going to a departmental store where you have a cashier seated and a scenario where number of transactions happen. This is more personalized. So there's need to ensure that your PIN is not seen by a third party. Wherever you feel that you've compromised that PIN, there are channels where you can quickly reach your bank, either hotlist your card, that's to deactivate it, or go to the nearest ATM to change your PIN to a new PIN that you'll be comfortable with.
We need to use our cards when we utilize the POS services. We need to be our first security agents, because customers and clients are vulnerable, and oftentimes, in spite of the checks being done on the POS agents, who really knows who they are or who they're aspiring to be? So it's up to you, the consumer, to be your best guard. Akinola Ololade from Ilorin, Kwara State says cashless policy is the main force that can make ease of doing business work. It saves a lot of us from risks. That's interesting. Mr. Damola will be coming back to continue our conversation. For now, POS services and activities in Oka.
In every society, there are different means of transactions or means of moving money and goods from one place to the other. However, in recent times, a system of transaction known as point of sale (POS) has evolved. Through this means, one can transfer, pay, or even withdraw money, as well as purchase and do other forms of transactions as the case may be. It is usually run by individuals who get their authorization from the banks. One of the criteria for obtaining the license is having a reasonable amount of money in one's account to take off, while there are some charges for each transaction.
This is my PS business. I used to pay my house rent, feed my siblings.
I'm still looking for more banks to come inside the market, and it will help the POS business to function very well, Because when somebody that is operating on POS, when the person got short of fund, the person travels from this place to Oka to withdraw money from the bank and come back. So if we can be able to have some commercial banks around here, it will help the POS business to function very well.
The POS device is said to have lessened the financial burden for financial institutions, reduced the stress and long queues of waiting in the banks by customers, and as such, makes it easier for traders to transact businesses without carrying much cash around. The trend is not different in Anambra State, as many have keyed into the use of this modern technology. Just as everything has its good and bad sides, some traders in some local markets in Anambra State say the trend has helped a great deal in their businesses, but not without challenges.
At times, going to the bank, we waste a lot of time. Within some minutes, the transfer will go to maybe to my buyer or to my business colleague. So immediately they see the transaction, they will now put goods for me. They will send the goods to me immediately.
The CBN WHT charge has been on the high side. Their percentage is high to compare with the risk attached to the business. So the agents face these challenges all alone.
Others, however, have this experience to share.
But the problem we are having is that some people can rob and bring their ATM to us, and after the transaction, police will be threatening us, thinking that we gang together to do the robbery together.
I suggest that each and every one of the establishments that are in charge of terminals should improve in their information collections about different agents and before disclosing their machines.
Expectation is that banks should strengthen their security apparatus to reduce the attendant risk of fraud perpetrated through the device by fraudsters.
Because people's hard-earned funds is what we're discussing, we would expect that the financial institutions in hiring this agent, these banking agents, must be very thorough in checking up the background of the people who they give their POS machines to, because people's funds are involved and the checks shouldn't be a one-off. The checks should be consistent. Mr. Damola, tell us, how often do financial institutions check the background of the people who man their POS machines? Like, once you give them the POS machine and you've done your research, is that it? Do you consistently check up with them, their background, their activities, what they're doing?
Thank you for that question. There are different kind of models. Today, banks have direct agents. When you go to those agents, you would find out that you would see the bank logo and the bank banner associated with that agent. Those are direct bank agents, and I can assure you that as a direct bank agent, all KYC, all guarantor forms and everything is collected from that agent before they are able to operate as a direct bank agent. Now, there are other agents under the MMO license, and those agents, even though you would see that some of this collection is done on a DMB, a bank, the agents, the MMO, the mobile money agent operator, is actually directly responsible for that agent, and I presume that they would also perform their own KYC and guarantorship process around the agents. So just like we employ people in the branches, we employ people in at agent locations, because an agent location is like a branch, it's like an ATM, it's like a mobile phone, it's a channel of giving our services, and we must adhere to those processes that we have in the banking hall today at the agent location. So I would say, first and foremost, you should always be careful and be sure of the agents you are going to patronize. Most agents are localized, so if you are going to patronize an agent, it's either because that is the area where your business is, or that is where you live. And if you live somewhere or you come to work somewhere every day, you'll be used to the agent that is located in that area. When you are traveling out and you're somewhere different and you're patronizing an agent, that is where I think you should err with caution and ensure that this is an authorized agent and not someone just trying to grab your card information. Or otherwise, you can use an ATM, which is probably half the cost of using the agent's location.
Mr. Damola, we have different situations where a POS agent gets your card compromised and bank accounts are fraudulently cleared using POS devices issued by banks, and then the people become helpless. That is the story we hear. So Emeka is asking us today, how do we continue to trust banks and the use of POS?
In this scenario, all parties are known. So as the issuer, the owner of the card that has been issued to you by a bank, we know who you are. As the owner of the POS, we also know who you are. So in those cases where there is exchange of funds and where there's a dispute, there are processes laid out for that dispute to happen. Now, if it's fraudulently done, there are also channels that each acquirer and issuer, acquirer being the bank that owns the POS terminal, or issuer, the bank that owns the card, there's a dispute resolution process where they have to go through. Sincerely, where you would see something like that happen and there's no resolution is either because there has been some compromise on the side of the operator of the acquiring device. So there are instances, and I think you mentioned it on this program, where people go and claim, fraudulently claim disputes from the bank. So they tell you that this transaction didn't go through, even though the receipt, here is the receipt, it says successful, I want my money back. There are things and procedures and checks that we make to ensure that this is genuine. We've seen a number of ungenuine cases and a rise in that in the last few months from the agents, maybe because some of them have claimed some of these transactions in the past. And, the industry is not sleeping. The industry is making sure that whether you have an Android terminal or an analog terminal, like you said earlier in the report, you would still ensure that we get the right funds back to the right people. So there are things happening in that space.
It's what we urge, it's what we pray for, because these are hard-earned funds owned by hard-working people. But in my own case, my ATM card was in my bag and my account was being debited. And when I rushed to my bank, there was nothing they could do. Those were their words. We want to thank you, Mr. Damola, head of e-banking, head of e-business, Wema Bank, for coming to enlighten us this morning on Weekend Deal. A break beckons now, and the program will continue. Don't go away. You are watching Weekend Deal. Our conversation concerns you because it's how to safeguard your funds, whether you're using the ATM, whether you're using the POS. I was talking about how the central bank is enabling banking to come right to your doorsteps, of course, with your support and participation. Now, NTA Abuja has been doing some research, and I'm going to tell us now about the process of acquiring a POS terminal.
The point of sales POS business began to spread in Nigeria in 2013 after the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) introduced the agent banking system. Thus, opened up a new portal for financial services to reach bank customers in remote, unbanked, and underbanked societies. The process of starting a POS business is easy and can be completed within 2 weeks to a month, provided you meet the requirements by the host bank, which includes having an account in the host bank, preferably a current or corporate account, national identity card or driver's license, or international passport or voter's card. However, there are now some organizations issuing POS machines at a one-time fee. Simply approach the bank fill the POS machine application form, and the machine will be available a week after.
We have different process over here in POS here. We have this PalmPay has a different part initially, which is played with Interreach here, and also we have parts here. Part initially give its own special process, but all the same goes one way for easy transaction. There are some bad guys initially that can use this to withdraw money from accounts, but I don't know if actually you have your own personal account, your own personal apps. I don't think they can do that, because initially if you have your password with you, it's not going to be so easy for them to trace out your password. Understand? Except you are doing cardless. When you talk about cardless one has to do with in which you don't use your ATM, but you fingerprint yourself. That's the process people use to invest and also steal.
There's some stuff that other machines does that the other one cannot do. You understand? So that different kind of way they get to operate. There's some machine you can play bets with, where the other one you can't play bets with it. Some challenges, the kind of stuff when they say customer has been debited and have not been paid, all this kind of stuff. So those are the kind of challenges. And sometimes you get to send money to some customers and they'll be like they've not getting the money yet, and they go to go and pre-statement of accounts. All those stuff is network challenge. But they can actually use the normal one they've registered to do criminal stuff, whereby as long as the machine is working, they can use it to go for an operation, and they get to slot your card, and they enforce you to put your PIN.
POS operators choose a location that attracts customers, like bus stops, public markets, and event centers, which makes it easy for the customers to get the money they want in exchange for a commission. But there are issues.
Some of the POS operators, that last 4-digit number, some of them will copy it, use it to transfer money from your account, and so on. A lot of complaints.
The only difficulty I have with POS is sometimes when they charge you, they tell you 100 naira is their service for what you are requesting for. Maybe you want to withdraw 5,000, they say your charge is 100 naira. You are paying for the service, and at the end, the bank will deduct same 100 naira for your account. After debiting the 10,000 naira in my account, the debit I receive is 10,200. After paying the charge 200, that means I've paid 10,400 naira, which is a maintenance.
The POS business in Nigeria is currently one of the hottest businesses to start for the average Nigerian, and it is legitimate.
Thank you, NTA Abuja. Everyone needs to safeguard themselves. You safeguard your card, your funds. The POS agent safeguard his business. All in a bid to enable the ease of doing business for all Nigerians. We're still talking about the cashless policy, the POS, the ATM. We're talking about you as well, who has the funds. And we're talking with Dr. Tefa Abraham. He's an economist. Great to have you join us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
When we talk about cashless policy, most times we're looking for definitions. That sometimes we say it's theory. Let's break it down for everyone to understand and assimilate, and then we take it from there.
Okay, the whole idea of cashless policy is to reduce the volume of physical cash we deal with in everyday transactions. In economics, money is held for three reasons: speculative, transactionary, and precautionary. Speculative for investment, precautionary for health, school fees, house rent, in case of incasity kind of reasons, then transactionary for everyday purchases. Now, in the past and in many countries till today, all these transactions are done using physical cash. The whole idea of cashless policy is to see how much of dealing with direct cash governments can reduce to move it to less dealing of cash, because printing of cash costs money. So the cost of printing cash for the central bank has always been high in the period of 100% cash operations in Nigeria. But when you move to cashless policy, you reduce the cost of printing the naira, because it's funny to know that you spend 80 naira to print 100 naira bill, for instance. That is why coins even faded out, I beg your pardon. If you recall, there was a time we had this beautiful 1 naira coin, very heavy, very nice. People who deal in jewelries and iron and things like that. They bought that 1 naira out of the Nigerian economy. It was costing more than 1 naira to print a 1 naira coin. So cashless policy helps us reduce all this kind of inefficient way of managing the naira, the currency, by digitalizing almost, if not all, aspect of transactions. So this is the concept of cashless policy. It also reduces crime, fraud, cost of handling direct cash, and then it also reduces the exposure of people to robbery and physical abuse of the naira, which costs the central bank money to maintain.
It's interesting to hear that it reduces fraud and crime and all, but we must also realize that when we take a step forward, those fraudulent people sometimes may want to take 2 steps. They seem to be quite proactive, because what we've been discussing since yesterday is fraudulent activities that take place with the ATMs as well as the POS terminals. So would you say we have succeeded in eradicating fraud from our financial transactions with what we have on ground now?
Well, they say when you fight corruption, corruption fights back. So as we innovate in the financial, money and digital space, the crime aspect also innovates. Now, in the past, just picture a situation where someone is traveling on a bus from one point of the country to the other, and then there's an armed robbery attack, something like that. The people with cash get robbed. But now it's assumed that when you have just your ATM, you will not be robbed. But it's strange to know that these people also go about with ATM, with POS. So now the idea now is that there is need for efficient check on who you give POS. Nobody, I observe that it's possible to just get POS from open market. Nobody should have that power of issuing POS except a bank.
That's why we talked about due diligence.
That is very
it's one
important.
thing to do the due diligence at the takeoff of that person's business.
Yes.
But to truly ascertain who that person is, it can be a one-off.
Exactly.
You know, I was asking Mr. Demola, how consistent are these checks and balances?
It
must be ongoing.
The major aspect to block is ensuring that bank knows who they are giving POS. Because if they give POS 111 to a customer ABC, and somebody was robbed using POS 111, you simply go to 111 and refund and reverse the transaction. It's important to know who POS is being issued to. So policy-wise, this is how it seems. But in reality, it appears that as the POS space expands, banks are becoming less conscious of who they give this POS
You
to.
heard us asking Mr. Damola earlier. Now, I said, I know we've heard they do due diligence, but how regular, how consistent means it must be ongoing. Because if truth be told, they don't write crime or criminality on anybody's face. So who knows? Maybe the POS agent is living with a friend. He left his POS machine. Maybe he traveled to see his mother in another state, and while he was gone, his neighbor or his friend or his flatmate did his own style of business with that machine. What you said, I think, is really critical. Those who give out the machines must perform due diligence, not one-off.
And it's
it
important
must be
to know,
consistent.
And it's important to know that when you go to this POS agents and you want to withdraw money, that point where you give them your ATM and you impute your PIN, they also have a PIN to impute. So you don't, and that money is going to an account. So banks know who took what from who. The only thing is that banks have this policy of protecting customer information.
But let's talk about the ATM now. There are incidents where money is taken from someone's account. You know, I even have a case where the ATM card was with the person and money was being taken from his or account. That's, you had your ATM, but because you had used the POS in the past, money wasn't taken from your account. And when you went to the bank, because that money was taken from my account by another account, how can you help trace it? And they said it was carelessness of the client, because when you went to use the POS, you made your numbers vulnerable.
So what happens is that every ATM card has this long 16-digit number. They call it personal. It's called PAN number, personal account number. It's long. So you see the name personal already shows that it's yours. That ATM long number, the long number on the card is yours. Then what protects that number is your PIN. Now, when the person used that ATM, it is true that he or she must have been careless to allow the POS operator to know his or her PIN. Now, at that point, it's possible for that account to be debited. even if the card is with the person. So, but what is important now is that having a POS or having an ATM without having a commensurate access to a mobile banking app in this our time and era is very dangerous, because with your bank on your phone, you can block that ATM card the very first time you got the first debit. You simply go to your bank on your banking app on your phone. There's a provision to block. So this is what every person should have at this time. Have your bank on your phone so that you can block some of these things, so that at least after the first debit, the person will not just have a free day just going on like that. Then, having said that, that ATM that was debited, that debit that happened on that person's card is going to an account. It should be possible that once the person reports to central bank or his or her bank, banks are friends. They have a connection. They have a platform where they all interact. It's possible to know that that debit this person got from your bank went to this person's account. So contact that person informally to call the person's attention. We are aware that you got 3 credit alert last week, and the source of that credit, the people are complaining that they were defrauded. Please be careful or keep watch, or otherwise we may have to escalate. Just banks telling people these things can make them even fear and sit up. We are not saying banks should become law court to jump on customers, but customer care call us when they want us to do something. Why can't they call when there's a complaint from a customer? Banks know us more than anybody. They have our thumbprint, they have our BVN, they have our address. They keep asking us to update our identity cards and registration and physical addresses. So when a customer lodges a complaint, banks should become part of the financial system due diligence center
as
to
well
ensure
as
that
the security network.
Exactly, to halt. In fact, there's this institution by the federal.
But are you sure they're not being halted?
No, I think they're
because
just
people are being caught. Fraudulent activities are being addressed.
Yes,
in some cases.
When you go.
Are you saying it's not being done as quickly as they ought to?
It's being done when you go through EFCC or any of the anti-corruption agencies or Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit or DSS or any when you want their cooperation, they will certainly give it to you. But we are saying that at the customer level, there should be an informal arrangement. For instance, and again, it boils down to having this bank on your phone. Do you know if you use your POS, your ATM to pay on a point of sale machine in a particular outlet, and you are debited twice, you can go to your bank, to your phone immediately and report that these 2 cases you were debited but the services were not offered. The bank quickly check and reverses immediately.
But nowadays, what we have is that to make a complaint, you have to go physically to make a complaint. But it's okay. We've passed the message. Have your bank on your phone.
There's a lot of services you can access from it.
Okay, let me take 1 or 2 messages. Otumba from Zaria says, we welcome the innovation, the cashless policy, the ideas that surround it. But giving out licenses to these bank agents should be well regulated, and they should be well trained and enabled to perform the services that customers really need.
Yeah.
Let me talk about some issues that have been coming up with regards to our funds and our banking transactions. For the most part, what we know, research has thrust up this information that we have more ATMs in the urban areas than in the rural areas. So perhaps the need for the POS is more needed in the rural areas, but now they are everywhere, which is okay. But we now find that oftentimes the ATMs are not working, and we are being nudged because we need the funds. Talking about cashless policy, we are traveling light. So we need to go to use this POS. And in some cases, we have come to see that not only are some not well trained, they are not well regulated. Do you think it's deliberate that we're being deliberately moved from the ATMs to the POS?
Okay, again, like we started on the cashless policy aspect, Central Bank has a commitment to ensure that we attain 100% financial inclusion. Financial inclusion means all Nigerians having access to a bank account to be able, and they should be able to have access to financial services seamlessly. Now, presently, financial inclusion index for Nigeria is still about 40 to 55%, meaning out of every 10 Nigerians, 4 to 5% do not have access to financial services. In other words, they don't have a bank account. In other words, they don't have a bank verification number, a BVN, meaning that they will not be able to access financial services. Now, the financial exclusion index is usually larger in the rural areas, that's where you have the unbanked population, where banks cannot cover, where banking reach is very difficult. So the concept of the POS business is part of CBN's innovation around financial inclusion to ensure that people that are unbanked, people that are in the rural areas have access to financial services. Because without financial services, you cannot be able to transact.
I want to ask you to hold that thought, but that is not what's obtainable now. Everybody.
Even in the
I was
city.
saying yesterday that sometimes we were POS. No, we use the ATM. We were all like the ATM is the one we're used to. But now almost everyone who is not doing online banking or walking into the old way of doing things, entering the banking hall, is using the POS. But we'll go to Benin. We'll come back.
Great.
From Benin, a lot of research has been done to ascertain how you start a POS terminal business and the factors you need to consider, especially for the security of the banking agents.
Note that the point of sales or agent banking business is one that has been thriving exponentially since it was introduced by the banks in 2013.
Let me say maybe you travel to Lagos or Onitsha to buy market or those kind of things. It's very easy for you. That time that you used to go to bank, spend some hours in the bank, we queue. So if it's nearest space for you to collect from POS, you just go there.
If I don't enter POS, I want to withdraw 2,000. It's 100 naira. And I will just take it easily and move away.
There is no bank in many villages. No bank. So you can easily transfer money to your parents, to your guardian, very easy, through POS.
Its low startup requirements makes it attractive to many.
We have people and the right environment for agent banking to thrive. It is part of this agent banking you are now seeing POS terminals deployed to various sales points and at different locations in the state. The POS is a fallout or a part of this agent banking, in which people in remote areas outside the conventional banks at weekends close to their home can make banking transactions.
Howbeit, poor location, insecurity, amongst other challenges are major concerns.
I transfer 80,000 naira without knowing that the people are fraudsters. I'm begging on government to help us for security.
They should not be hidden. Because if they are in a hidden place, that's when they can be attacked. Even the people that attack, they too are scared. Keeping too much money at hand, I don't think that's a good idea.
With some combined efforts, however, those could be greatly minimized.
People operating POS should avoid getting a point and sit alone. Get a shopping mall, create your own space there. Discuss with the landlord where there's much activities of people coming in and going out. So don't sit alone in a place.
You have to be friendly to your customer. That is the most important thing. As you are friendly to them, it draws more people to you.
One major thing that operator should do for them to be successful is that they should be very, very patient. You should have that patience, because there are times when you do transaction with this POS business, because of network challenges, you find out that they will debit you, but the money will not come.
The best approach to being a successful POS operative, therefore, as the stakeholders have said, is to carefully choose a busy but safe location, whether rural or urban. Select a reliable network provider. Have a stable power source. And of course, be customer friendly.
Have a reliable network provider and a stable power source. Check out your surroundings, amongst other things, because when your business is safe and secure, so will the funds that your customer have, because they are coming to you for a reason. Before the break, many messages have come in, but let's round up what we were saying before the break, because there seems to be a gradual movement towards the POS machines, and we're beginning to wonder if it's by choice, if we have an option anymore.
Okay, the idea is officially banks upload money into ATM machine doesn't give out money automatically. Somebody goes there physically to load that money, and these banks transport this money. There's a lot of security that attached to it, and it's someone's job. Someone goes to work every day, and his job is to check which ATM is running short and to fill it up. Now, ATM should be an option. Then the POS business should be originally for financial excluded population. But because of the experience of poor network with ATMs, ATMs running out of cash, it has even become more fanciful to withdraw from POS operators, even in the heart of Lagos City or Abuja or the capital of where you live. The POS guys are now everywhere, and they make money through the charges that they put on the customer. So you are willing to withdraw your same 10,000 naira, but you are willing to pay 300 naira or 600 naira on top of it because you are sure of getting it. But when you transport yourself or drive to ATM, you might get there'll be this long queue, or ATM not dispensable, or bank issuer inoperative, and all these issues. So what is important for the banks to do is not to substitute POS for ATM and vice versa. The two sources, outlets, should continue to operate.
We should have a choice.
Yes.
The customer should have a choice.
It shouldn't look like POS guys are always having money. Don't forget, if you allow the POS, there's a limit to which POS should operate. And this is how even Bureau de Change became difficult to manage. Bureau de Change guys were supposed to give us access to $1,000, $500, $5,000, $10,000, a smaller amount of foreign currency. But over time, they became even bigger than the foreign exchange departments of banks, and it became difficult to manage them, and they started competing with central bank policy and parallel market rates. So it's important to ensure that POS are regulated. They should operate within their domain, ensure that they give access to small cash and quick cash while ATMs continue to operate efficiently. Banks should not cash in on the idea that it's better and safer to give POS agents money than putting it in the ATM. You will be robbing off customers' benefit from consumer banking experience. So it's important to ensure two of them continue to operate efficiently, so that it will not look like a situation whereby because we got mobile phones, we wiped out all our landlines. Two of them should continue operating efficiently.
They should work side by side.
Exactly.
Because the way it's looking now, it's looking like the customer doesn't have a choice in the matter. And that's how we come to arbitrary charges. You know, for the most part, in some POS agents can charge what they want. We have been told that there's a fixed tariff, and that the financial institutions that have these POS terminals are manning, their activities. But it doesn't seem like that anymore. Because sometimes, somebody could say on 10,000, pay 500. And because we have very little choice in the matter now, this is what is available for us. We have to pay.
No, certainly.
How can that be checkmated?
Certainly, there are fixed charges to all these things, from 1,000 to 5,000 and above. There's a fixed amount to pay. But it looks like even the POS operators are becoming smart. They are becoming location sensitive. If you are to withdraw 10,000, maybe in Maitama or Sokoro or near an office area, they are likely to tell you pay 500 extra. Because sometimes they also do this simple distance calculation. They know that the nearest ATM to you is like 10 minutes drive. So if they tell you 600, they want to see your willingness to accept the fee they are charging you and your own willingness to pay. Economy is all about consumer behavior, and every consumers are always struggling on who we take. The consumer wants to buy a large amount of quantity with the lowest amount of money. The seller wants to sell very huge amount, but using very small quantity with the highest possible price.
And that makes the customer or the client, they are being taken advantage of.
Exactly, because of
someone
this
sent us a message here that sometimes you need to take into consideration the situation of that ordinary customer. That 10,000 he's coming to withdraw, maybe the only money is in account. And you want to take maybe the 500 naira left is what you want him to pay on that 10,000. So we need to enjoin the financial institutions to do more.
So here's the thing. POS agents should begin to place on wherever they operate the charges for every withdrawal. Just like the way if you walk into banks, you see they have this dashboard that advertises exchange rate for every currency out there. POS operators should also have a paper or an information outlet, just an A4 paper printed and pasted on their wall or inside their operation, to withdraw 10,000 and less this amount, to withdraw 10,000 and above this amount. Once they don't do that, we should also hold POS. The way we want banks to be accountable, we should hold the POS guys, operators accountable as well.
To what extent?
Ask them,
How
much do you charge? Where's your information? Otherwise, they may tell you to pay 300 on 10,000. When you tell them 50,000, they tell you for every 10,000, maybe pay 500. And all this is arbitrary, and you may not.
Can I take you up on that?
Please
Already,
do.
you have said that. Oftentimes, that is the only option that the customer has. So, interviewing him and asking him all those long questions, does it change the fact that you still need to withdraw that money and you may have to pay transport to the next port of call?
But at that point, he's a banking agent. POS operators are agents. They are agents for banks. So they should also help the customer get access to better services by not charging this person arbitrary. That's all we are asking for. They should also, the way we want, they are also like banks anyway. They are the agents for banks. They are the marketers. That's why they are called Momo agents. They are agents for banks. So they should just make their information known as well, so that people will not feel they are charged
They are being taken advantage of.
That's the point.
Dr. Tefa Abraham, the information you have availed us with today is, unquantifiable. We want to thank you so much for taking the time to enlighten us further and to give us more clarity on many issues, especially with regards to financial inclusion. Every Nigerian has a financial right to be included in transactions. Yes. The POS agents are also victims. Some customers do settle transactions but still have disputes in the banks. For customers, the use of the POS is optional in some cases. The only issue is that banks' customer service section don't have enough staff, so the few who are there are overlabored. Most of the staff are also ignorant of the processes of resolving disputes. The agents are not the problem, but the bank's customer service, because every dispute has a process of resolving it. But those in the banks are either ignorant or reluctant to do what they are supposed to do. Ejiofor is an agent and is reaching us from Enugu. Thank you, Ejiofor. We'd like to know who you are and where you are reaching us from. It makes the message more meaningful. Daniel from Benue State, he says, this program has been really informative and he enjoyed it. Mr. Ogundipe from Lagos says he also had a traumatic experience where he received an alert of 104,987 naira, but from that time up till now, there's been no communication from the bank. That means it was a fake alert. Mr. Ogundipe reached us from Lagos. Samuel Duru, it says POS agents should stop taking too much money from the customers. That's, we've talked about arbitrary charges. From Adamawa State, say POS makes the lives of the people there and the businesses easier. So, in other words, it's a good thing. You didn't tell us your name, but you are reaching us from Adamawa State. We thank you so much for being a part of our program. It's our hope that we have learned a lot and to enable us to function better, because our funds are the result of our hard-earned work and we should guard it jealously. Be your own first security operative. Be proactive when you go to the POS terminal or where you are at the ATM. Financial inclusion is the right of every Nigerian. God bless Nigeria. Have a wonderful weekend.